Welcome to Scrollin', a podcast about the Elder Scrolls Online. I'm Ket.
I'm Davius.
This is episode number 26. It's like in that area of numbers, it's like you don't even care anymore. It's like, you've had your 21st birthday. Time to just get a job, shut up.
So I was about to say, who cares when they turn 26? It's like, hey, you're 26. That's another year. That's another year you're alive there.
You're another year closer to death. Congratulations.
Well done.
So there really aren't a lot of things we need to announce this week, but I did want to make sure everyone is aware that the Cyrodiil campaign only has 2 weeks left in the 30-day campaign. So if you haven't done your transmute grind yet, you might want to get that done here pretty soon because time is running out. If you had a chance to get into Cyrodiil and do your transmute grind yet, Davius?
I have not, so I will be in there this coming week. That's going to probably be my focus is Cyrodiil. So that's where I'll be. If anybody wants to find me, going to be in Cyrodiil. EP, of course.
I'm in the exact same boat. I'm going to have to do that probably tomorrow, Saturday. Probably going to spend most of my day in Cyrodiil on various characters, knocking that transient grind out.
Maybe if we get a good enough Goon Night going, we'll have a Cyrodiil Goon Night.
Oh yeah, like everybody, let's go get your transmutes. Here we go.
Here we go.
Nice. On the topic of Cyrodiil, so we're recording at a different time this week. We normally record Saturday mornings, but due to circumstances, we're recording on a Friday night this time. So the Gold Vendor actually has not appeared yet, so we don't know what's on the Gold Vendor. But we figured we would just use this spot where we normally talk about the Gold Vendor to remind everyone, hey, be sure and go check out the Gold Vendor. You never know what she's going to have, and it's often something really, really valuable. And it can be, a rare opportunity to get a hold of something really easily that would normally be really difficult to get a hold of. So be sure and check that out.
Yeah, there's usually always at least one, sometimes two sets that are very much worth it from the Gold Vendor on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, usually. I don't know, people, they're going to be bummed. Like, man, I really love hearing the Scrollin' guys talk about the Gold Vendor after it's already too late to buy things at the Gold Vendor.
Oh, this was that great deal that is no longer available.
I love talking about the Gold Vendor, but it's like, yeah, we upload the episode on Sunday, and probably most people aren't listening to it like right away. I would imagine most people at least wait till Monday to listen to the episode, and it's too late by then. So we're all talking about like, yeah, be sure and get your Baylorg, and it's too late. You can't even get it probably.
Just Zos, we know you're listening. Just give us that Gold Vendor information a week ahead of time. We'll work it into the podcast. No big deal.
Yeah. But I still like talking about it, and this is when we have the time to record, and it's like this kind of built-in rotation of armor sets for us to talk about.
Yeah,
so I kind of like that.
That's what I was gonna say. It allows for good conversation of certain sets that maybe. Haven't been talked about in a while, or some things that, kind of reminders, some good sets out there.
Yeah, exactly. I like that. So that's pretty much it for announcements. Let's get into some public test server talk. So we are on PTS version 6.1.3. This is week 4 of PTS. We only have 2 weeks left as of the time that we're recording this. And this week isn't really a very big week either. Not a lot of drastic changes really being made. And so I'm thinking, since no big changes are being made this week and there's only really 2 weeks left, we're probably not going to be expecting a lot of big stuff happening from here on out. Most likely, whatever the state of things are on PTS right now, it's probably pretty close to what the live patch is going to look like. Because you got to think, if they have... Next week, they could, if they wanted to do some big implementation, they would do it next week, and then they would only have one more PTS patch to like correct anything from that, So I don't think they're going to do that. I think probably the next couple of weeks are just going to be some refinements, bug fixes, maybe some minor number adjustments.
Something with Thracian Stranglers.
Probably, yeah. They'll figure out a way to fit in like 3 or 4 more Thracian iterations, I'm sure. Somehow
they're gonna have PTS notes, and then they're just gonna have Thracian notes.
Yeah. As far as skills go, there really aren't any actual balance changes. Nothing's really changing with skills this week, but there are a few bug fixes that I think are worth mentioning. So for the Necromancer, they say they've fixed multiple issues with corpse targeting for the tether abilities like Shocking Siphon and braided tether and those kinds of abilities. The Templar Lightweaver passive, they fixed an issue where that passive only grants ultimate to targets that are still under 50% health after you heal them. So now it doesn't matter as long as they're 50% health when you heal them, they're still going to get that ultimate return. It's kind of nice. Davis, you're probably feeling pretty good about that, right?
Oh yeah,
Ultimate stuff.
anytime you get more ultimate, I'm all about it. Those are the kind of fixes I need to see.
It's healing. It's ultimate regen. It's Davis has got to be a fan of that fix right there.
Davies approved.
And then for the Psijic Order, they made a fix to the Undo Ultimate. They fixed an issue where you could take fall damage when you activate the ultimate while you're falling from a high place.
That's always a interesting ultimate. I feel like I see a lot of people use it in Imperial City when they're kind of kiting people, and people that are really good with that ultimate. They are a handful to try to deal with when they're
Oh
popping that
yeah,
thing.
it's especially I think a Nightblade that uses the teleport shade
Yes,
as well. And they'd have both of those things going, man. You cannot lay a hand on them.
that makes for a
And
slippery character.
yeah, and I really like. There's one morph that gives you minor protection while slotted, and that's why a lot of people use it just to have that minor protection on their back bar. And it's a pretty cheap ultimate too. So it's a pretty good defensive ultimate, really, for anybody. All right, it's time for the weekly Thracian Stranglers update.
Hit the soundbite.
Uh, oh dang, I didn't make one. Well, next week we'll have it. Um, yeah, so it's still basically the same concept as last week. They've just changed some numbers. I do think it's better. I don't know. I still don't think I'm super stoked about this item with this iteration of it, but it is better than it was last week. So first of all, they fixed an issue where the max health reduction that was increasing with the stacks, it was scaling with other bonuses like champion points. So now that value will stay at 6,000. Remember last week we were talking about this, and it says it takes away up to 6,000 health, but once you factor in champion points, it's actually over 7,000 health that it's taking away. So now it's just going to be the 6,000 health no matter what. That's definitely a good change.
Still seems a lot of health, but we're going the right direction.
It's a lot of health, but it helps. And then they also increased the weapon and spell damage per stack up to 23 instead of 17. And they say they wanted to do that to ensure that the tail end of the set rewards its user. So that means whenever you have all 50 stacks, you're going to have 1,150 weapon and spell damage. You'll have negative 6,000 health, and you'll have the 50% shield reduction. That's still in there. So if you listen to the last episode, I kind of had this breakdown, right, where we were hypothetically making a build around the Thracian Stranglers, right? If we wanted to make a build that kind of compensates for that health loss and all that kind of stuff, and we still want to be as effective as we can be.
Yep.
We were kind of doing some math to see how that would break down. So I did another breakdown this week with these new numbers. So let's just kind of go over that again. So remember how we talked about in order to use this item, you're giving up a set bonus of some kind, right? Probably a 5-piece bonus or a monster set 2-piece bonus, something like that. And just as a baseline, we're saying that any damage, any set bonus that is damage focused is probably going to be roughly equivalent to like Julianos or Hunding's Rage, something in that ballpark. So we're just going to estimate about 300 weapon or spell damage is what you're giving up to wear this item, right? And that's not necessarily actually going to reflect on your stat sheet, right? So say like you're giving up a Grothdar 2-piece bonus. You're not actually giving up 300 spell damage, but as far as the amount of damage that you're producing, the effect is going to be as if you're missing about 300 spell damage. So we're going to subtract that from the Thracian total. With all 50 stacks, we have 1,150, but then we subtract that 300. So effectively, we have closer to 850 weapon and spell damage that we're actually getting from this set. But then we have to factor in the health thing, right? So let's say you're a typical PvE DPS build. You're running about 17,000 health, before group buffs and that sort of stuff. And so with the Thracian stacks taking away 6,000, you're going to be sitting at 11,000 health, which of course for hardcore end game PvE, it's not nearly enough. And so let's say we want to try to get that health up to 15k, which actually for an end game PvE build, it's a little lower than what is typically recommended, but you can actually make that work. I've seen like veteran raid builds with 15k health that they work. So if it's a good player and you know the mechanics and you're really on top of things, you can make that amount work. So I think 15k with a Thracian is probably okay.
It's doable.
Yeah, it's like right on the edge of being doable. So we're going to add 4,000 to our health pool to get up to that 15k, which means we have to take that out of our magicka or stamina pool. That's where that's going to come from. So that 4,000 stamina or magicka that you're giving up is roughly equivalent to about 380 weapon and spell damage as far as the effect that it has on your outgoing damage. So we're going to subtract that from the Thracian total as well, and that's leaving us with 470 what I would call effective weapon and spell damage. Even though your stat sheet is going to show 1,150 extra weapon and spell damage, when you consider that you're giving up that set bonus and you're giving up 4,000 of your primary stat in order to compensate for the health loss, you're effectively getting about 470 weapon and spell damage. So about like wearing New Moon Acolyte, the old New Moon Acolyte before it got nerfed. So definitely better than last week, right? It was like 200 something that was the number that we landed on last week. So
yeah, it's better.
It's definitely better. Based on my math, I'm estimating that at around 30 stacks is where you would sort of break even damage wise compared to like a typical Julianos or a typical like non-Thracian setup.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably going to break even damage wise at about 30 stacks there. And really everything that kind of seems to be the sweet spot. That's where you're going to break even damage wise. Also, with the health reduction, you're going to be sitting right at that 17,000 HP where damage dealers like to be. And then you're going to be at 30% reduced shield strength, which if you're a stamina build, you don't care about the shields at all. So no big deal there. So yeah, that's kind of where you're at. You're going to start out being more survivable and you're going to have less damage. And then as you get these killing blows, you're going to become less survivable and have more damage. On the other hand, you don't have to do this, right? You don't have to like try to compensate for the health and all that stuff. You can just run your normal usual amount of health and just say, you know what, I'm going to try to make 11k work, and I'm just going to enjoy that 1,150 weapon and spell damage, and I'm willing to sacrifice the health. And if your only goal is to have as much damage as possible, and you're willing to sacrifice whatever you need to sacrifice to get it, then yeah, Thracian Stranglers will help you get there for sure.
Need to be real good friends with the healer.
Be real good friends with the healer and have, a lot of mobs around to kill all the time, because the thing that really kills this set is the fact that you have to get 50 stacks to get the full benefit from it. And the way you get those stacks is to land killing blows, to actually kill enemies, not just do damage to them and then they die, but you actually have to get the killing blow 50 times. And then if you go through a loading screen, if you go through into stealth, if you die, you lose all of them. You have to start all over.
Yeah, that's the part that really stands out to me. I was thinking on this, and I don't think we talked about this last week, but we've talked about the 50 stacks make it just doesn't work in PvP. Way too many stacks, way too many kill requirement. But in PvE, this still has a place. But I'm really curious on what the numbers would look like is when you're running through a dungeon or a trial, like you said, 30 stacks is when you break even. So until you get that 30 stacks, you're not doing, you're hurting the group until you hit those 30 stacks. So by the time you get to 50 stacks, how many fights and boss fights have you gone through where you're doing less damage than somebody not wearing these, where you're actually kind of below the group average, whereas at the end fight you may finally be above group average, if you get your 50 stacks. but it kind of made me wonder. Is it hurting the group in the beginning only? Whereas at the end fight maybe it's going to kick in, but it may make things a lot harder at the beginning of a trial or dungeon run.
Yeah, like you're not actually pulling your weight until like the very end.
Yeah,
If you can get those 50 stacks, man, I feel like it's going to be really tough
it
no
would
matter
be.
no matter what setting you're in.
You would have to. You
Uh,
would almost have to really strategize. The group would almost have to really strategize around you to allow you to get killing blows.
yeah, basically, yeah, we would all just fight the mobs until they're all almost dead, and then okay, everybody stop.
Stop.
Let Davius kill them all so we can get his stacks. Because I've heard people say like, oh yeah, if you have more than one person wearing the Thracian Stranglers, then they're gonna have to share those stacks, and that's no good. But no, you don't. It doesn't matter how many people are wearing it. It's still going to be the same amount of challenge, right? Like
Yeah.
you have to get the killing blow. If your teammates aren't wearing Thracian Stranglers, it doesn't matter. They can still steal those kills and keep you from getting those
Yeah.
stacks. And if you're all just doing trash fights the way you normally would, you have in a trial you have 8 damage dealers spamming AOE everywhere to kill everything as fast as possible. So mathematically, you're 1/8 of those mobs you're getting killing blows on.
Yeah.
So it's just going to take a while. I think it's going to take quite a while to build up
Yeah,
those
and
stacks.
and we're a lot of the talk that the made up scenarios we've talked about is with one person wearing these. What if you join a group and two of the damage dealers in the dungeon have this, or in a trial, 3 or 4 of the people have it? Well, now you've got a whole bunch of people that are below what their actual damage capability is, and they may never get to average.
Not yeah, never, not a single one of them might ever get to that
Yeah.
30 stack break even point.
So then the whole group is just going to be hindered throughout the entire run.
Yeah,
Um,
I really don't see any serious end game player of any kind really investing in the Thracian Stranglers right now. Just doesn't seem like it's going to be worth working it into a build simply because of the 50 stacks. I think if they took it back down to 20 stacks
yeah.
and kept the stats as they are, like if you got up to 20 stacks and had 1,150 weapon and spell damage, negative 6,000 health, all of that,
Yep.
I feel like people would be excited about this again because 20 stacks is reasonable.
Yeah.
But 50, no way, no
It's just too
way.
much. It's just too much. I think it's good that the set's going back in the right direction, but kind of like you said, I still don't think it's there where it's viable yet. But maybe
Yeah,
somebody out there can prove us wrong. But 50 sacks just seems too difficult. And we haven't even not even to mention the fact that you're running really low HP. Obviously, if you get your say you do get to your 50 stacks, or say you get to 38 stacks. Well, one wrong step in a boss fight and then you die. What happens if you die 75% through the run? Well, guess what? Now you're really a hindrance to the group. It's
yeah,
just,
you're gonna have to like if you're on PC, you probably just want to have a secondary loadout saved in your
yeah,
dressing room add-on. So if you die, like okay, I'm just gonna swap to my normal Mother Sorrow setup
Thracian
now.
didn't work out.
Yeah, I'm almost certain that's what you would have to do if you're trying to make Thracians work. You're gonna have to have a backup set up for those kind of situations. So that's pretty much all the PTS stuff that I think was relevant, like important to go over. We did want to, Davies, you had some sets that were in previous weeks on PTS that, there were so many sets that were changed. We didn't talk about all of them. We just kind of picked out the few that seemed most interesting. But since then, there have been a few that we've kind of gone back and looked at, and they actually do seem really interesting. So we wanted to bring them up now. So, Davis, you had a few that you wanted to get into here, right?
Yeah. So the first one that I want to talk about was the Medusa set. They're making some pretty huge changes to the Medusa set here that I think is going to make things real interesting. Um, the first change that they're making is the 2 through 4 piece bonuses are now spell crit rather than health, magicka, and spell damage. And I think that's going to be important for kind of what we'll talk about here in a second. And then the set now has an additional 5 piece bonus of 900 spell crit. Um, so we're
And
talking,
just as a reminder, Medusa, the 5 piece bonus right now just gives you minor force, increases your crit
yeah,
damage by 10%, right?
yeah. So
So,
10% crit damage, which goes really well, obviously, with upping your crit.
Mhm.
So that total set, 33.99 total crit, comes out to about 15% crit increase.
Mhm.
Where everybody knows that the existing Magicka crit set is Mother Sorrow, which right now is 35.90 total crit, which is about 16% crit. So when we're looking at these two sets, we're talking about a 1% crit difference on an actual
Mhm.
build, but that minor force that Medusa's giving, that is increasing your actual damage, I think is going to make this one actually come out ahead. Obviously, with Mother Sorrow, it does have the line of Max Magicka, but I really think that minor force over that Max Magicka is going to end up being a larger buff.
Yeah, I think you're right. I had kind of overlooked this at first because I was like, oh, I just looked at the name, Medusa, who cares, and then didn't really pay super close attention. But this is actually a much more interesting set than it used to be. Yeah, it gives you almost the exact same crit rate that you get from Mother Sorrow, plus the minor force on top of that. And right now, a lot of players will use Race Against Time from the Sijic Order to get minor force. But if that's a buff that they have to cast, which is a DPS loss because it's not. That's a global cooldown that they're not attacking something.
Yep.
So if they can get that off of their bar and just have their armor set give that to them in addition to almost as much crit as Mother Sorrow gives you, seems really really good. The only there's two caveats to this that I see. Number one, it's a dungeon set, so you got to farm it from a dungeon. Whereas Mother Sorrow, you can just go buy it from a guild trader,
Yep.
so a lot easier to get a hold of. Number two, Medusa is a heavy armor set. So if you're actually going to put this on a Magicka damage dealer, you're going to have to run jewelry and weapons, which makes it even more difficult to farm because you have to get those specific pieces. But maybe you could maybe use this on a PvP build if you wanted to run a heavy armor crit focused PvP build.
Hey,
I don't know.
that's
It
that's
seems
right up
weird,
that's
but
right up Davies' alley right there.
yeah, seems a little weird. But I guess you could do that. This is something too that I don't think there's any chance of them changing it to a light armor set because these dungeon sets are kind of locked in, right? Every
Yeah.
dungeon set, you have a heavy armor, a medium armor, and a light armor set. So I don't think they're gonna change
I'm
that.
interested to see going forward. I think for kind of beginner players, I think they'll definitely still go Mother Sorrow. But for the more kind of experienced veteran players that are able to kind of farm dungeons, I could see kind of a switch of some Mother Sorrow builds switching to a Medusa, finding their way of getting Medusa on there.
Oh yeah, on my PVE main, he's a Magblade, and he's just been running Julianos Mother Sorrow basically since the beginning, right? I've always just found that to be a good enough setup. I don't need anything different. But if I end up with some Medusa jewelry and weapons, then I'll certainly swap those out
Yeah,
because it's just a little bit better than the Mother Sorrow for sure. But I'm not gonna break my back over it. Mother
yeah,
Sorrow is still totally
still a great
great.
set. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and,
Um,
like one thing, like you said, you can get minor force, where Mother Sorrow is still giving you the max magicka. But I think that's kind of another point to Medusa. Obviously, there's ways to get that minor force, but getting more max magic on a build is a lot easier than getting a specific buff like minor force.
yeah. Yeah. Totally. So we also wanted to touch back on this Oblivion's Edge set. So just as a reminder, the current version of this set, it gives you 129 weapon damage, and when you kill an enemy, you fill an empty soul gem,
Important
and
piece
you
there.
heal. Very important, and you heal for 1,720 health. No cooldown on that. So they're changing that a little bit now. Well, a lot of it actually. So they're increasing that healing from 1720 up to 20,621. So a much larger heal,
Yeah,
obviously, but it has a 10-second cooldown now. So it was 1720 no cooldown. Now it's 20,000 10-second cooldown.
yeah.
Don't worry, you still fill the empty soul gem, so we're
That's the
safe
most
there.
important part.
Yeah. And then the amount of weapon damage that you get from that 5-piece bonus is now 258 instead of 129. We just wanted, Davis, you just wanted to bring this up because that 20,000 heal is just, it's too big of a number to ignore,
Yeah,
right?
it's just massive. Well, and then the 5 piece going up to 258 weapon damage. I think that with that heal, I think this actually makes this a viable set. If you're talented enough in PvP to kind of do a 1vx, I think that those type of players are going to love this type of set. If they can
Yeah.
kite players around and really get into a fight and, take down somebody every 10 seconds, as soon as they take somebody down, them getting that massive of a heal, just completely filling up their health bar, this set to me just screams those super talented 1vx players. This just seems like this would be something perfect for them, that they literally could just take down player after player with this.
Yeah, I could definitely see something like that happening, especially if they're just tanky enough to last, like to take a beating for 10 seconds, and then they get that big heal right at the right time.
Yep.
And you're right about increasing it up to that damage bonus from the 5 piece being 258 instead of 129. Hunting's Rage is 300, so we're just below
Yeah.
Hunting's Rage. Plus, you get this built-in auto heal whenever you kill people. All right, what else do we have here, Davius?
So the next set we have is Hersine's Veneer. This is another set that we kind of wanted to talk about. This set now grants you and nearby allies 145 stamina recovery rather than reducing you and nearby allies' stamina costing abilities by 4%. So I think the biggest change to this set is now this helps Magicka players. This is giving them actual stamina recovery. Whereas, if they didn't have any stamina abilities on their bar, this really was nothing for them. But now you're taking an already great set and making it, a more broad buff to all allies on, that are grouped with you. I think this could be a pretty huge kind of subtle change as well.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm actually really pumped about this now that you've kind of made me focus my attention on this set, and it's another one that it kind of went under my radar, which it shouldn't have because I actually used this set on my Stamina Warden. I have a Stam Warden like support build. It's basically like a stamina healer, and it uses this set along with Powerful Assault and Troll King, and I've been thinking about replacing Hersine's Veneer for the reason you just said. Magicka players, Magicka spec allies don't benefit from the current version of Hersine's at all because it reduces your stamina costing abilities by 4%. That only applies to like abilities that are on your skill bar. It doesn't apply to roll dodge or sprint or block or any of that stuff. So Magicka builds just get absolutely nothing out of you wearing this. And so I've been looking at like, okay, if I want to be a support build, what are the best like support sets out there that my allies can benefit from? They're all Magicka sets, and for me to put that on a stamina build, it can happen. You can make it work, but it's hard to make it work. So now I don't have to worry about it. I'm just going to keep Hersine's Veneer, and now my Magicka allies benefit from it. Now they're getting an extra 145 stamina recovery. That is hugely beneficial to a Magicka build specifically. Because your stamina allies, they're a stamina spec. They're investing in stamina recovery. And of course, they're going to appreciate having a little bit more. But your Magicka allies are going to be the ones that really benefit from this. Because especially in no CP, like a Battleground, there just isn't room to invest in stamina recovery as a Magicka build unless you're wearing Amber Plasm.
Yeah.
The only other set I wanted to touch back on, we actually did talk about this one, Redistributor. I just needed to make a correction. The notes, the wording in the notes made it unclear. It made it seem like the Redistributor set is gonna proc whenever you overheal anybody. But I logged on to PTS and actually looked at the set, and that's not the case. It only procs when you overheal yourself, just like before. But the cooldown is every 1 second instead of 3 seconds, and it heals for a lot more. So it's still definitely a lot better than it used to be, but not quite as good as we thought it was.
Yeah.
But I still think I'm going to use it. I think I'm going to try to put together a Mag Sork kind of hybrid support / offense kind of build that incorporates this somehow. I think it could be cool.
I'm excited for that Max Work build. That's the one you're talking about. It would be Redistributor and Spell Power Cure, correct?
Yeah. Redistributor and Spell Power Cure. I think that would make a lot of sense on a Mag Sork using the Power Surge, which is that's the morph of Surge that gives you heals whenever you crit heal. And then using Radiating Regen, I would just have these multiple layers of heals just always going, which means I'm always over healing. And so these sets are constantly getting procced.
Yeah, it's a nice setup.
Could be cool. We got a little bit more info about these AoE tests. They're going to be happening in Cyrodiil. They just kind of listed some abilities, just clarified some abilities that will be affected versus some abilities that will not be affected. So they listed a couple here that will not be affected because they already have a built-in delay. So one is Scorch and its morphs, Sub-Assault and Deep Fissure, the Warden, the delayed burst ability. It already has a 3-second sort of cooldown on its own, so it's not going to be affected. And then the PvP skill, Magicka Detonation, which most people use the proxy detonation morph of that, but the base ability and both morphs, they will not be affected by the AoE tests as well because they already have their own delay built in. However, these following abilities will be affected by the AoE test. This isn't a complete list of every ability that's going to be affected. This is just kind of them clarifying, like some of these abilities, it may not be clear to us whether these would be considered AoE or not. So it's kind of these ambiguous skills that they're listing here, like, yes, these will be affected. So Shrouded Daggers, Force Pulse, Shock Clench. So that one's only going to be affected if you're using a lightning staff. Blood Mist, Borrowed Time, Obsidian Shard, Strife, Lotus Flower and the Green Lotus and Lotus Blossom morphs. Inferno and its morphs, Flames of Oblivion and Cauterize, that'll be affected. And Conjured Ward, Empowered Ward, Hardened Ward, those damage shields will also be affected. All those abilities, I think Force Pulse is the one that seems the weirdest because, well, no, that has an AoE component. If there are enemies around that have an elemental status effect on them, then Force Pulse can do splash damage to them. So I guess that's where that comes from. I wanted to read this too. So right now, this week on PTS, they're testing the Witches Festival, and they made a note here for the Witches Festival, which will be the next one that we see in the live game. They say, lastly, we introduce our final Endrick morph for 2020 and perhaps for all time. Whoa, that's crazy. This it's the Crimson Endrick. I've seen pictures. It looks pretty crazy. I've seen people call it the Sriracha Endrick or something like that. So I just thought that was worth mentioning, man. It has been like Endrick overload since Somerset.
Yeah.
It's been 2 years of Endricks.
Because that's when Endricks, right? They were on the Somerset Island, right?
That's when we first saw them, and they started making them available as mounts for events. Basically, going forward from there, it's like the only thing. So I'm excited that they're actually telling us right here this might be the last Endrick that we ever see. I hope so, man. I'm tired of
there. Endricks, end of Endricks.
I didn't even like them in the beginning. I thought they were kind of cool, like running around in Somerset, seeing the monster Endricks that you can fight. Seeing those, like, oh, that's a cool looking creature, neat. But that's like the end of it. They're not so neat looking that I just have to have 1,000 different mounts that are all Endricks.
Different colors, all different things. I hope, even if they pick a different style, I hope that whatever new mount they pick for this doesn't last as long as the Endrick. Like maybe this could be like a yearly thing. But this is exciting. I mean, how many events have we not really gotten into the tickets and stuff because we're like, well, that's for an Endrick, we're not going to worry about it. I'm gonna start getting into these if there's different mounts and ones that I actually am more interested in, things like that. I'm excited for this. I'm gonna start mount farming. I'll get into that. That's it's a big change. Which speaking of mount farming, I have to admit this to you, and you can throw your shame my way. I dove into loot crates this week.
Oh no!
I went down the spiral.
Are those Sigil crates out now?
Yes, that's what did it to me. In my defense, it was the Sigil crates. They re-released them.
They're pretty cool.
Yeah. So I got a Sigic bear for my stamp sork. It matches him perfectly. It's a beautiful sight to see, but it took a lot of loot crates. Won't go into the number, but it was a lot of loot crates.
Yeah, I'll ask you after we stop the recording.
How much pain? Just let me dry up my tears over here.
I know you've been wanting that mount for a while because you have
So
all
long.
these bear themed characters, and they
Mhm.
each have to have a bear mount that like matches their theme, and this was like the one that would match this
Just
character, so you
matched
had to
my
get it.
Stam Sork perfectly, which I've just, everybody knows how much we love our Stam Sorks. So he was just the final piece to fit. And it does look beautiful.
Those Sidric mounts are awesome.
They really are fantastic mounts.
I got super lucky for some. I can't remember what it was. I got a free crate one time for some event or whatever. I think like everyone got a free crate that like watched a Twitch stream or something like that. So I opened that crate and I got one of the Sigic Wolf mounts, and that's like by far my coolest mount now. I like basically just use that on every character now. But yeah, they're really really cool
Yeah,
looking mounts.
very cool mounts.
All right, that's pretty much all the PTS talk. All else that's going on in there is like minor bug fixes, some polishing, minor stuff. Like I said, probably not a lot of big stuff going to change going forward. There's often a surprise or two slidden in there at the very end, and oftentimes even like on the live patch, like the day it goes live. In those patch notes, there will be a new thing or two that we didn't even see on PTS. So
Yeah,
there could be a curveball. You never really know. But I think probably the major stuff is behind us at this point.
yeah. I just have to reiterate. I love, kind of like what you were saying with those sets that revisited. There's so many sets out there that you just really read the name. You're like, oh, well, that's that set. I'm not going to worry about it. But I love that they're finding these old sets that we have written off as nothing or worthless, and they're actually, some of these sets are becoming more viable. It's almost like they're just adding brand new sets to the game. It does so much for theory
Yeah,
crafting. I'm so excited that they're going back in and looking at those old sets.
yeah, that's been my favorite part of the last few patches, and they've been doing this for a while. Like like the last few patches, there's like this whole new list of old sets that have been reworked, and I honestly think I get more excited about that than the new sets.
That's true.
Honestly,
There's some
uh,
there's some truth to that.
which not that the new sets are bad. There's been some awesome new sets added, but some of these old sets I think are like they're really good ideas for sets, and they just weren't quite viable enough. And now it's like, sweet, finally I can use redistributor because it doesn't suck now.
Yep.
Like I like
Yeah,
that.
I think that's a great point with these old sets. And I think that's why it's kind of exciting, is because you'll see these sets, or maybe you'll get these sets from farming or doing a run or something like that, and you see the idea of it, and you get really excited for it, and then you're like, oh, it's just not going to work. But that set always
Yeah,
just kind of hangs with you on the back of your mind, and then when they go back and revisit it, it's so exciting to go, oh, that set that I always kind of wanted to make work, now it possibly could work. There's something
yeah.
to that.
Ashen Grip I think is a really good example of that. It's a
Yep.
crafted set that has really been bad basically the entire time it has existed, and now it's actually a pretty good set, especially for no CP PvP. It's a very good set.
Yep.
All right, so let's move on. Let's talk about what we've been doing in ESO here lately. What have you been up to, Davius?
So we talked about this. I've actually been playing a lot this week, but I haven't had like a lot of focus. I've just been kind of having fun playing with characters, just kind of bounce around doing a couple different activities.
That's the best way, isn't it?
Yeah,
Just get in there. You don't have a particular goal. Let's just see where the wind takes
the
us.
the goal will find me. So one of the things that kind of happened is that as I've been talking about lately, I've really had a lot of fun with really just morphing this Davius tank build into this just high end, full fledged. All right, this guy's gonna be a high end PVE tank. So I've been kind of diving into it, and I'm still running the same setup of the Eben with the Tremor Scale monster set, and then the Blood Lord and the Blood Lord's Embrace mythic item, and so. And he does, he's a Magicka and Stamina, so I use the Bloodlord's Embrace to get my Magicka regen, and then I have the uh, what's the name of that Templar Stamina sustainability? I'm blanking on the name of it,
Oh, the
but
rune.
no, well I do use the rune, but the one that absorbs the bodies.
Oh, repentance.
Thank you. So I use Repentance for my stamina sustain. So I kind of have a lot of Magicka and a lot of stamina sustain through a run.
Uh-huh.
But I've been kind of trying to figure out how to take it. I want to get more detailed with it, things like that. And so I've kind of worked it around to where I have all those sets on my armor pieces and my jewelry pieces. And so I did a two-piece endurance just to get a little bit more health, and then that freed up my weapon bars completely. And so for my front bar, I do with the sword and shield. I haven't done it yet. I'm going to start farming it, but I, kind of figured out what I was wanting to do this week. But I'm going to actually farm the sword and shield Dragon Star Arena weapon set. Um,
Okay, what does that do? I can't
so
remember.
this one is that whenever you deal damage with puncture, which is basically that's the sword and shield taunt ability.
Hmm.
Whenever you deal damage with that ability, you heal for like 6,000 health, and you gain physical and spell resistance equal to the amount of healing or over healing done for 5 seconds. So
Okay, yeah.
essentially, every time I'm taunting, I'm just putting a small heal back on myself and making myself tankier. And I use that ability quite a bit just because obviously you're taunting things and you're pulling mobs and things like that. So just to kind of get a little bit extra from because I already have all the sets that I want to go with. So to put that on there and just get an extra heal over time, it's just going to
Yeah.
make him a little bit tankier. And so I'm really excited for that. And I honestly am not even sure what I'm going to do with my back bar weapon. I might just do three-piece endurance so that when I switch to my back bar, I get health recovery, a nice health recovery buff. Or I might look into, maybe some other arena item out there that might be work. But the main part I'm excited about is that Dragon Star Sword and Shield. When I kind of found that and saw that, okay, every time I taunt, I'm going to get a heal, make myself a little bit tankier for 5 seconds. That's going to work real well with kind of the setup I have going.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, combined with all the other stuff that's going on in there, just an
yeah,
extra little layer of stuff happening there.
and I'm having a lot of fun with his, we've talked about this a lot about this, but he has a mythic piece, plus he has a monster set piece, plus a 5 set piece, and then 2 pieces from endurance. Now he's gonna have an arena weapon. I feel like it's
Yeah, he's all over the
yeah,
place with the.
I'm having so much fun that he is pulling so many different sets to kind of piece this thing together. It's really been a lot of fun to kind of see each little buff kind of work for him.
That's
So
cool. Yeah, that's where we're at right now. Though, like
yeah,
builds are just wacky right now. You can make all sorts of different things work, piecing all these different. Like, I'll take two of these and three of
yeah.
those and four of those. Yeah,
It's a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun to think. All right, used to be I only got two or three, but three buffs for my sets, a 5 piece monster set. So to get all these different little buffs from the sets is it's really nice just to kind of add in all these little things. It's just made him a lot more fun.
do
Um,
you remember when you could not even run two five pieces and a
oh
monster
man,
set?
you're talking about the dark days.
Or yeah,
the
how far we've
the
come.
the two-handed as a Magicka Templar main through that time, man. When two-handed used to count as just one item. Oh, those were
Yeah,
the dark days.
I remember when the meta for PVE healers was to just not wear a monster set, just wear two
Yeah,
five-piece sets, no monster set.
that was me. I was that person. It
Yeah,
was like, monster sets don't matter for us. It
yeah.
was, I think, what was I running back then? I think it was 5 piece Lich and 5 piece Spell Power Cure. Uh, yeah, those were the dark days. That was back too, and traits could no transmuting of traits, so you just had to
Yeah.
farm and farm and farm.
You just had to farm for the specific trait you needed. It's cool.
um,
Yeah. What else has been going on this week, dude?
So the other thing I've been doing a lot is, I talked about Lord of Nords, my Stam DK, how I've kind of got his build fixed up through the Malakath band on him. So I've been
Yeah.
doing
How's
a
that working out?
lot of battlegrounds with him. And man, that Malakath band and a no CP battleground, like we said, that is just what that ring was made for. He hits so much
Seriously,
harder. He is
it
he
almost takes you by surprise, right? Like, I'll get into it later, but yeah,
yeah.
it takes you by surprise how much damage that thing pumps
Well,
out.
yeah, because like most people I think do this, but me and you do it all the time. Before you're in a battlegrounds or while you're in queue, you're kind of running around practicing your combination. Trying to stay all right. This is make sure I'm getting my rotation right, make sure I'm getting my timing right. And so when you have that on and you're doing it in PVE with your CP, you're just kind of hitting, and then when you go into the battleground, it's such like an on switch that it really does catch you off guard because you're like, oh whoa, these abilities are hitting a little harder.
Yeah, you really only see its true power against players, and especially with no CP. That's where it really comes to life.
So he's doing really well. I'm actually really excited for this new patch to drop because he's only getting buff. All his sets are getting buffs. And so I say all his sets. He does wear potentates now, so that one's actually getting a little bit of a nerf. But everything
Yeah.
else he's wearing is getting buffs, and so I think he's going to be in even better shape. So I'm actually really excited for when the patch drops to hop in more battlegrounds with him.
We keep talking about that. Like basically, several of our characters are just going to wake up one morning and just be a lot more powerful
Yeah,
than they were the day before.
it's
It'll be awesome.
yeah, it's really exciting. Yeah, it's the one that I always joke about is probably my Stam Necro. He wears the Sword Singer, which is the 400 weapon damage. I think that's getting buffed to, is it 600? It's 450 now, and
Yeah.
it's getting buffed to 600.
Yeah.
He's just getting a flat, massive damage buff. Not doing anything, not farming anything, just flat, massive damage buff.
Yeah, because that's just a pure two-handed build,
He
right? It's like the
is,
only abilities you use on
yes,
that
his
guy.
entire front bar is all two-handed abilities except for I have the Camouflage Hunter just for the passive buff.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's just Wrecking Blow, Execute,
So you
all
just
over
have
the
a
place.
straight 600 weapon
Yeah,
damage on that dude. Basically, as far as your attacking power goes, it's
yeah.
pretty awesome.
I actually I'll probably dive into him. I still need to gold out some of his and finish his build out, but I really need to dive into him because I think he could actually be something really special with that buff. The other set,
He's already like your hardest hitting guy
yeah,
right now, isn't
exactly.
he?
I did
Yeah.
some tests last week or a week ago to see which one of my characters was actually hitting the test dummy the hardest, and he was by far the hardest of all my characters. So it kind
By
of,
far, and he's getting buffed.
yep. And he's getting a massive damage buff. And he also has the best sustain of any character I have because he
Oh
wears
wow.
the other set he wears is the Daring Corsair, which is all your weapon abilities cost 10% less. And it
Yeah.
gives you, whenever you use a weapon ability, you get minor heroism. Got to get that ultimate build in there.
I feel like that's one that flies under the radar, which those are always the sets you like. The
Oh, I
ones that
love the
like,
under the radar.
yeah. That's a good set, especially like that, like a build like that one where it's really centered around it. You're choosing to mainly use weapon abilities so that does work, and the effect is you actually have a really good sustain because of that.
Yeah, his sustain it's just off the chart. I mean, every single one of his abilities, 10% cost reduction. It's fantastic. Yeah, he works really well. I need to finish that build out because I think if I actually go fully in and fully invest on it, it could really be something special. Um,
Yeah.
but so the other thing I've been doing this week is I've been still hopping into battlegrounds with Bear Claw. He's still loving him, still loving that build.
Stamina Warden.
Stamina Warden, the heavy bow build. He just beats people with the bow. Animals all over the place. He has the bear. I can't explain it. I know people are probably sick of me hearing it at this point, but being in a battleground and executing somebody with that bear is just the greatest ESO feeling that has ever that I've just ever had. It's just I can't explain the euphoria that I get when I see them running past the bear coming to me and they're right in the execute range and I just go, "Yep, you fell for it. It's
Yeah,
going to
well,
work."
that's people ignore pets, like especially like with if there's a mag sork around, you just get so sick of pets,
Yeah.
you stop
I'm
even
the
seeing
same
them, right?
way. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just
And so they just ignore this bear, like another pet, just forget it, just ignore him. And then no, you better not ignore that
yep.
bear.
Bear's about
Um,
he's about to get a hit on you. So I've been having a lot of fun with Bear Claw. He's been doing a lot of battlegrounds. I will say that I ran into this Stamblade who just was rocking my world. I can't remember. It was either a day or a couple days ago. But he was, when you kind of get into, you do a whole bunch of battlegrounds. Most of the time at the MMR you just see the same players. It's just the teams usually mix up when you do a bunch of battlegrounds in a row.
yeah,
And so it was just, I was seeing him every match. and every single time he was just, I mean, just, and he wasn't just rocking me, he was rocking everybody, but especially me. I feel like because I kept trying to go after him, kept failing every time. He was next level. And then it was funny because it's like 3 or 4 masters hopped in again, and he was actually on my team. And so I just sent him a message. I said, "Hey man, you've been rocking my world all night. Like, happy to have you on my team." He
Yeah,
just responded with a simple heart. That's all it was, just a heart. It was pretty
he
hilarious.
knows.
He knew he was rocking me. But yeah,
Oh man, fewer things are as frustrating as a truly great stand blade.
yeah, yeah. And
Uh,
he was the epitome of Stamblade. His sustain seemed endless. As soon as you thought you had him right where you wanted to, he was gone. And then but next time you see him, he's full health, back and ready to go. And he was partly tanky, like he was tough to kill. And so when you finally did get him, you're like, all right, I finally got him. Then he'd slip right through your fingers, and it was just, oh man,
yeah, I've seen
he was.
some amazing stand blades. It's funny, we talk all the time like how night blades aren't really a great class for battlegrounds, and that's I think in general that is very true. But you do see these players once in a while that it's like,
They,
okay, if every night blade played like that,
yes,
then yeah, they'd be fantastic. Because this is always what I say about night blades and battlegrounds is the really the only option, especially stand blade, the only thing you have to contribute is kill counts. You don't have anything else to provide your team. So if you're going to take a stand blade into battlegrounds and you want to be pulling your weight, then you just have to get as many kills as you possibly can. That is your contribution.
yep,
If you're a warden, say you're a stand warden, of course you want to get kills. Everybody wants to get kills, but a stand warden has other things that they can contribute to their team. So even if they don't get that many kills, the team is still benefiting from other
yep,
things from having that person there. Not the case with a stand blade. They don't benefit from you at all unless you're just getting kills.
yep.
And I think the really, really good ones understand that, and they just focus everything on that.
Yeah, because that's the thing, is that they're not going to be with the group in the group fights, which with them not being in the team group means that the other players are not going to get as many kills because they're going to be taking a lot more, heavy hits, and it's going to pull their kills away. And so that Stamblade, not only does he have to get his regular kills, but he has to make up for the kills that the other 3 players aren't going to get by, missing out a teammate. That's kind of that's the math. That's how I look at the math in my head. But when you have, when you have one that is good, like this one I ran to the other day, he gets the kills and more. He was phenomenal.
Yeah, it's it's a sight to behold when you see those guys because you don't. It's hard. I think it's hard to be good on a Nightblade in battlegrounds. So when you see someone like really bringing it like that, it's always impressive to me.
Yep. But yeah, and then the last thing, kind of out of the blue here, I dove back into antiquities a little bit.
Okay,
You know,
cool.
dusted off the antiquities, and
Is there a certain like thing you're shooting for, or you're just kind of doing it just to kill time, or what?
well, I built up so many leads. I don't know if you've looked at your leads lately, but just all these other things that I've done, I just had this massive stockpile of leads. And so I actually started doing, this is, a little embarrassing to admit, but I never fully maxed out antiquities on my
I
main.
still haven't either.
I'm
I'm
like,
still not
I'm
there.
still on that last, like halfway through level 9. And so I
I
started doing
swear
it.
it took. It feels like it took only a couple of hours to get to level 9, and then it's going to take like the rest of my life to get
Yes,
to
months
10.
and months and months to get that
Yeah.
final piece. But I actually started Antiquities on Bear Claw as well, so I've been kind of going back and forth.
Ah,
Started it on a secondary character. I had forgotten how much gold you get from it. It is that
yeah.
when you start on a new character, it is a great gold grind.
Just the level up process. You get a lot of
Yes.
gold in that process. Yeah.
But yeah, I've kind of forgot. It's a lot of fun. It's easy to kind of get lost with other things, but I actually had a lot of fun going back to it and kind of diving back into it a little bit.
Nice, man. Well, I've been doing a lot of battlegrounds this week as well, and I'm you and I are kind of in the same boat. We've both been playing quite a bit this week, but it's been fairly directionless. I haven't had any specific goals that I'm shooting towards, and it's actually been pretty nice. I just log in and just kind of do whatever I want. And this week especially, I think it's been really enjoyable to me because I've been spending most of my time on my old friend, my original main, my Magic and Nightblade. Um, And this is, I say my original main. He's not my first character. Like my first character was
I
a
was about to
Khajiit.
say,
My first character that I made was a Khajiit Stamblade named Catface Johnson. And
Catface.
all that character has ever done basically is just quest and run around the map and explore. I basically just was playing Skyrim online with that character, right? A lot of fun. Me and that character, we've had some times. Uh, but yeah, I got to a point where I was ready to start doing some end game stuff. I wanted to get like a really like a good build together and like learn how to be good at this game. And at that time, mag blades were the meta for
Yep.
PVE. They just dominated everything.
Your Magblade was like your first MMO character.
Yeah,
Catface was
yeah,
your first character for the game. Your Magblade was your first MMO character of the game.
yeah. That's why I say the mag blade was my first main really. The first guy I really started like investing in and trying to really learn how it works and how to be good with him. Um, and the thing is, so for the longest time we were just doing PVE, and that's like all we did. And so he was great. It was like the only character I ever played with for the longest time. When we started getting more into PvP, of course, PvP is a lot more challenging than PvE is, or for me anyway. And I was struggling like everyone struggles their first time going into PvP. But I feel like there came a point where I realized, like, okay, I'm still struggling, and I feel like other people aren't struggling as much as I am, and they've been playing about the same length of time. So maybe this isn't the right class for me to be playing in PvP. I'm going to make a Stamplar. Let's see how that goes. And
Betsy was born.
that was the birth of my second main, Old Betsy, my Stamina Templar. And honestly, I immediately started getting much better results in PvP, just by virtue of being a stamina build, I think mainly. But also, Nightblades do have their challenges, like we were just talking about. It can be kind of hard to be good with a Nightblade in PvP, especially Battlegrounds. Um, so that's kind of the conclusion that I drew. I transitioned to Stamplars, was getting much better results, and I kind of concluded maybe Nightblade is just not so great for this. And then I continued on and made a bunch of new characters. I have a full roster, every class in the game now. And honestly, my experience the entire time has been all of these classes, every single one of them are much easier to get good results with than my Magblade. And so he's just been sitting there collecting dust as far as PvP goes, and he's been my PvE main still. So anytime we do dungeons or trials or arenas or anything like that, I grab my Magblade, and he's still amazing for that. Anyway, all that to say, this week I decided I'm going to revisit PvP with this dude, and he's going to be good at it. Dadgummit, like I was just like.
It's gonna work.
I was just determined to make it work. I've had a lot more PvP experience at this point. I'm a lot better than I was back then when I was trying it for the first time with this character. So surely I can get some better results than I did back then. So that's been kind of how I've been spending my week, just playing with this Magblade in BGs, just seeing what kind of results I can get. And the results are they vary from match to match, that's the case with any build. I think some matches you're going to be totally godlike. Other matches you're going to be like the absolute worst player on the entire map, and everywhere in between. Right?
Yep, it happens to the best of us.
But I've been pretty pleased with how this guy has been performing. I've had a handful of really good matches, like as good as I've gotten with any other character. I even put one match on YouTube that is one of the better ones that I had. And man, the thing about a Nightblade is, yes, they're terrible team players, but man, they're so much fun to play. Like when you're in that groove, like when you find that groove and you're getting those kills and you're slipping away from people and you're doing that Nightblade thing. It's so much fun. Like you were talking about with the bear, it's so much. It's like the most satisfying feeling in the world to execute someone with your bear ultimate. I feel that way about like successfully like eluding someone with a Nightblade, like ganking someone's teammate and then slipping away before the rest of their team can get a hand on me, and just being like elusive and scary and stuff like that.
Slippery assassin.
So much fun. And he does a lot of damage too. The build is, let's see, it's Torig's Pact, which is getting buffed soon. He's using Lich with a Resto Staff on the back bar, and then the front bar is a Master Fire Staff. And then, of course, his monster set is, you guessed it, Mighty Chudan. Uh, which I actually on this build, it's kind of totally necessary. It's not just simply laziness this time, which is often why I use Mighty Chudan. But Nightblades, they don't have an active armor buff. They get it from a passive. And the build that I'm using right now, I'm running 7 pieces light armor, so no heavy armor pieces whatsoever. And the way the Nightblade's major resolve passive works is that the duration is increased based on how many pieces of heavy armor you're wearing. So it only lasts a few seconds when I'm not wearing any heavy armor at all, which means I have a lot of downtime on that major resolve buff. So I just put on Mighty Chudan, so I'm constantly covered. I don't have to worry about it. What's also nice is Mighty Chudan gives you a line of resistance. And so does our Torig's Pact set. And with this next patch, when this next patch goes live, Torig's Pact will give us an additional line of resistance. So we're actually pretty darn tanky for a 7 light armor kind of glass cannon Magblade build. If someone does, land a Dawnbreaker or something like that on us, we have a good chance of surviving that and getting out of it. So I dig that. Oh, I forgot to mention though, Davies, you're going to be surprised by this. I cured his vampirism. Not a vampire anymore.
You are on a mission to eradicate vampires in Tamriel.
I mean, not really, but I've been.
I mean, along with the rest of us that realizes their uselessness.
I've been putting it off. This dude's been a vampire all along. He's been a vampire basically since I made him. And it's like perfectly fitting for just like my head canon of the character. And it fits, like, vampirism thematically fits Magblade just perfectly. It's like they were made for each other. But man, this new iteration of vampirism, I was just reading the passives and just trying to find a way to justify keeping vampirism, and there really isn't anything. The thing is, I don't want to keep feeding to get up into the stages of vampirism where I actually get any kind of benefit. But even when I do get those benefits, I'm not going to be using any vampire abilities, so the cost reduction that I get for that isn't important to me. And so I'm just increasing the cost of all of my abilities by being a vampire.
Yeah.
All the passives that are good about, like, the passive that makes you take less damage as you lose health, you have to be like a stage 3 vampire. I can't remember the exact stage, but you can't do it at stage 1 is my point. Right. And so the only thing I get by being a stage 1 vampire is a 3% cost increase to all my non-vampire abilities. Nothing else. Even the sneak passive that reduces your stealth movement speed, or that increases your stealth movement speed. You have to be like a stage 2 vampire to be that. I just can't justify it. Like, just looking at it, crunching the numbers, it's like, this is doing nothing but hurting me, and I'm getting nothing good out of this whatsoever. Which really sucks. Because I used to just be a vampire because it gave me better sustain, not worse sustain. It gave me better sustain. That's why I was a vampire, and I didn't have to feed all the time to keep that going. It's more of a hassle now, and the what you get for the hassle is a worse build.
Yeah, yeah. It's just vampire's in a bad place right now for sure.
It's a bummer, and I actually like the visual of vampirism on this character. I think it fits him really well. So it was a big bummer to get away from that. Luckily, I have the Soul Shriven skin, and that's kind of similar enough. He still looks undead-ish, so he still kind of has that theme going. He still kind of has that aesthetic. But it is a bummer, man. He's been a vampire this whole time, and I loved him as a vampire. And it's a big bummer to me that he's not that anymore.
They've got to make some changes. Hopefully.
But yeah, I've been having a lot of fun with him in Battlegrounds. I think I'm gonna keep playing with him on a regular basis, keep jumping into Battlegrounds, and keep pushing myself to get good with Magblade in PvP. I saw this guy one time. I think he had some special characters in his name, but his the character's name was Day One Magblade. Uh, and
Nice.
just like you might expect, man, this dude was absolutely unstoppable. He would totally make you question everything everyone says about Magblades being in a bad spot right now, and all that stuff. Which I think I agree that Magblades aren't in a great spot right now. But this dude and others that I've seen like it, it kind of makes you question that. It makes you think like, no, actually, Magblades are OP. We need to nerf Magblades. You know,
Did you
um,
see this guy?
this guy, let me tell you. So I want to be like that. You know, this is my original main. I want to get on that level with this guy. So I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to spend more time with this dude and see if I can get there eventually. On the flip side of that, I've been spending a lot of time with my stamina sorcerer as well. Of course, there's pretty much never a time when I'm not spending a fair amount of time with the stam sorcerer. And I basically have the exact opposite experience with him. It's too easy, right? Jump into a battleground, and it's just I'm gonna do well, right? Like I've never had a bad match with this dude. It's not so much my skill as it is the class. Stam Storks are just they're just so powerful, and their toolkit works so well in battlegrounds.
Yep.
Um,
Put on the heavy metal and just start spinning.
yeah, I just I just find it so easy to get good results with this character. Uh, and yeah, you're right. I mean, you have streak. You put a bow on your back bar. You have major expedition with that. That if you're wearing medium armor and you're a stam sork, then you're speed capped right there. It's so easy to hit the speed
Yep.
cap with a stam sork. Plus you have streak. Plus they have the unique ability to stack so much weapon damage, a lot more than most other builds are capable of. While having really good sustain. They're just so good, man. So much fun to play
Yep.
with, and like so high energy, just full throttle. Like you feel like Ric Flair at the end. You know, like you're just like woo.
You're never not moving with a stamp sork, I feel like.
Yeah,
Like you're just always just all over the place.
yeah. And there was never like with my Magblade. I'm sitting here talking about like, yeah, I want to get good with Magblade. That I never had that moment. Like I was just automatically great with a stab sork right out of the gate. You know, there's like I said, I honestly don't think I've ever had a bad match. I might have had matches that were maybe more average than others, but they've all been pretty good. Another thing on the topic of battlegrounds, I just wanted to note that I've noticed a lot of Magicka Dragon Knights using the Celestrix monster set, and I just mentioned that because I know that it's a set that you've started using recently, and you said you
Hmm.
really like it quite a bit.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
It seems to work really well on a Dragon Knight using Talons. So they gap close in, they talons the entire group, and by the time anyone realizes they've been talons and they try to break CC, that Celestrix hits them right then, and so you're just everyone's stunned then, and it deals a pretty decent amount of damage. On top of the talons themselves actually deal a decent amount of damage as well. I've seen some Dragon Knights get really, really good use out of that combo right there. So I just thought I would mention that if people were maybe trying to think of some ideas for their Dragon Knight, that seems to be working well for some people.
Yeah, that does sound like a nice little combo.
Yeah. All right. So no emails or comments this week, but if you'd like to get a hold of us, you can email us at scrollinpodcast@gmail.com. That's scrolling with an IN, no G, scrollinpodcast@gmail.com. If you just have any questions about the game or have any suggestions about stuff you'd like to hear us talk about here on the show, you just want to say hello, tell us a joke, whatever you want, send us an email, scrollandpodcast@gmail.com. You can also reach out to us in game. I'm at Ketsparrow Hawk. Davius is at Starjumper, and just say hello or whatever. We also have a guild, Stoons Goons. We are openly recruiting. So if you're looking for a social guild with a slight PvP focus, but really we do a little bit of everything. We're a very friendly guild, very non-toxic. We just like to hang out, have a good time, very chill. We do Goon Night every Friday night where we all just get together and go into Imperial City and just mess around and have a good time. You do not have to actually be good at PvP. In fact, most of us are pretty inexperienced with PvP. And I think that honestly makes it even more fun in a lot of ways
Oh, I
because it's
do
just
too.
all
I
kinds
do
of
too, for
wacky
sure.
stuff happening and people just cracking up. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, Students Goons, hit us up in game at Ket Sparrowhawk or at Star Jumper if you'd like to be a part of that. It's a lot of fun. Anything else to say before we sign off, Davius?
I think that's it.
All right, we're going to call that an episode. We will see you next time.